damaging. And thus it was that when Professor Gordon of Indiana University said to him that, in effect, he has proclaimed that the marketplace is a snare and delusion, what it is that we are arguing here tonight, all of a sudden, Mr. Galbraith said exactly the contrary of what you have heard him say here tonight. Remember, he said the marketplace is a snare and a delusion. He didn't say those who believe that the marketplace will usher in the kingdom of God believe in a snare and a delusion. He said the marketplace is a snare and a delusion. But when he was accosted with some analysis by a colleague, he turned around in his reply and he said with rather rare and commendable docility, I have never suggested that the revised sequence, that's what he calls the non-market mechanism, the revised sequence he's given to these antic formulations, has replaced the accepted sequence, he means the market, outside the industrial system, beyond the limits of the large corporations, the market mechanism still rules. Within the industrial system, it is of diminished importance in relation to the non-market mechanism. Here, too, the consumer can still reject persuasion, and in consequence, through the market, he and his fellows can force accommodation by the producer. In other words, Mr. Galbraith has said, A, the market does work outside the technostructure, and B, it continues to work to a certain extent within the technostructure. It can actually succeed in rejecting the imperatives of the technostructure. Mr. Heilbronner seems to me, having absorbed the work of Mr. Galbraith, having absorbed and studied deeply the British experience in particular of the last few years, in an essay on the future of socialism, he is himself, Mr. Chairman, a socialist, writes a few weeks ago, thus, the debate on socialist planning has come to a curious conclusion. If the theoretical dispute has been settled in favor of socialism, the practical question seems to have gone the other way. The giant corporations of capitalism have outperformed the lumbering ministries of production at every hand. It has brought about a belated move in every advanced socialist nation in the direction urged by Oscar Lang, a colleague of Mr. Galbraith's at Harvard, away from centralized towards decentralized planning, and in particular, away from the directives of a monolithic central planning board towards the autonomy and flexibility of a market-based system. I submit, Mr. President, that what we are face-to-face here tonight is mishuman.
I was just about to point out that you are quite right in saying that proponents of the market have no interest in making public enterprise succeed. This is quite clearly shown in the American society. By subjecting their customers to extensive delay in delivering their stock, and by arousing apprehension as to whether in fact any particular transaction would be accomplished, various brokerage houses have recently engendered doubts about capitalism, even in the resistant minds of the relatively rich. But this simply proves that the technostructure and the argument you are supporting is merely inefficient in persuading the public to accept its basic inefficiencies. You are not proving that the market mechanism exists. You are simply proving that the technostructure is inefficient in proving that it does exist.
Mr. President. Mr. President, I think that is the most cogent argument advanced on the other side throughout the evening. I wish, if I may, in the few minutes that remain.
Mr. Buckley, is it true that you took resort in the stock market to prove your argument because you failed to prove your argument in all other markets?
Madam, I don't know what markets you patronize. Mr. Chairman, what I'm attempting to say is that in my judgment and in the judgment of Mr. Davidson and Mr. Evans, we are moving precisely towards an epoch in history where it becomes all the more important to preserve such leverage as the individual can conceivably exercise. Professor Mead of Christ College here in Cambridge, commenting on Mr. Galbraith's book, points out the fact that precisely the use of computer technology invites the possibility that the individual choice will be received and that it will be transmitted through the vagaries of economic complexities even more sharply than it was in highly fundamentalist economic situations. He points out, as for instance has Mr. Maris pointed out, that there is no reason to suppose that those people who manage the technostructure are going to be less sensitive than the actual stockholders to any abrupt decline in the profits of a particular corporation. And Mr. Gordon points out, and others who have studied the work of Mr. Galbraith, that it is, in the words of Professor Solo of MIT, quote, drivel, quotes unquote, to suggest that the socialist countries in East Europe have done anything less than discover in the marketplace some means through which to reintroduce into the idealistic lunacies some element of practicality, the purpose of which is, I remind you, to help human beings. Mr. Heilbronner, who has for so many years been so ardent an advocate of socialism, now says, of course, socialism continues to have a triumphant responsibility, and that triumphant responsibility is to use its political power to reintroduce the marketplace. Indeed, that would be ironic if that were, in fact, what the socialists of the world were now to unite in order to do, to redress some of the errors they have made. Let me say this, and say this without any attempt to dissimulate. I do believe that the principal reason why the marketplace got this reputation that causes people to sneer at its mere mention is because in the excitement of 19th century rationalism, it was taken primarily to have a metaphorical meaning. It became a process of epistemology. As it was suggested by Mr. Evans, it was through the marketplace that we were going to come to eudaimonia. It was through the marketplace that we were going to come through democracy to paradise. It was, as Professor Oakeshott has described the situation, the rationalists making politics as the pro-flies. And under the circumstances, we expected that the marketplace would give us a situation which was in every respect constantly an improvement over the predecessor situation, not merely in economics, but also in philosophy, also in culture, also in architecture. The best test of truth, said Oliver Wendell Holmes, is its ability to be accepted in the marketplace. This is the basic axiom of the religion, and I use the word decisively, of logical positivism. I have no reason to suppose that champagne is preferable to ditch water, said Holmes. I have reason to suppose it, but there is no way to prove that the cosmos does. Precisely that invitation to relativism gave the marketplace its bad name. Those who believe that the marketplace is the best friend of individual people making individual decisions, very trivial decisions by the cosmic standards that we approach here today, but decisions that mean a great deal to them. Those who believe that the marketplace ought to be overturned because it has not given us paradise are in fact criticizing people who have said about the marketplace that it would give us paradise. Mr. Davison doesn't believe it will. Neither does Mr. Evans. Neither do I. All I say is that in a world increasingly complicated, increasingly overridden by bureaucrats, increasingly dominated by the military, we must watch always to preserve those little mechanisms that are left over to us that are not subject to political manipulation. Ilya Ehrenberg, that great communist hack who served out his life for Joseph Stalin, nevertheless found himself shaking through in his novel The Thaw, and he wrote that incandescent sentence. Someday, he said, when the whole of the world is cemented over a blade of grass